Rome was very religiously tolerant, because if the religion was authorized by the Senate, then it could be practiced by the people. They said, pax deorum, pax hominum. So if the gods are in peace, the men are in peace as well. And so many different cults were celebrated in Rome if they were authorized by the Senate. But the Dionysian cult, Dionysus became Bacchus from Bacchus, the reveler. Also Bacchantes come from Bacchus, this word, to revel. And the rituals became the Bacchanalia. It spread without the authorization of the Senate. It spread from the lower classes, and probably from southern Italy, which was an area where Greek influence was stronger. But also there was a god in Etruria, where I live, modern-day Tuscany. The Etruscans also had their Dionysus called Fufluns. And so there was a very ripe field there for the cult of Bacchus to take foot. Do you say this? Sometimes I say this, I don't know if they're correct in English. Anyway, it spread like wildfire. Many people were initiated, and it started getting out of hand. And the Roman Senate, which was very conservative, started wanting to do something about it. So membership was open to everyone, as I said before. Also in this case, women had prominent positions because they could initiate men, which was a subversion of the hierarchical kind of order that was already in Rome, because Rome at this time, we're talking about the 2nd century BC, was very militarized, very hierarchical, very misogynist. Rituals broke rigid conventions of gender, social status, ethnic origin of the people, because you had immigrants and you had slaves again. And so this created a very sharing certain very extreme experiences together, like a Bacchanalia. People had the chance to create a bond among them that could have been stronger than the bond connecting the Roman citizens with the Senate. And this was what was scary for the Senate. They were scared to lose control on the people. And so in 186 BC, there is this event called Bacchanalia Affair, which is something that I didn't study in school. I had to research to find it. And it's a very interesting episode of Roman history where the Bacchanalia were repressed. And to do this, they fabricated a false scandal. I'm not going to go into this, but I want to go into what we have as the speech that the consuls gave to the General Assembly to convince the people that they needed to repress the Bacchanalia. Of course, they were going to be very careful with this, because they knew that this was a tradition coming from Greece, which were, the Greeks were very valued in terms of culture, also in Rome. And they knew that this god was an ancient god. And so they were, they had to create the needs of this repression in a very sophisticated way. And so we know about this story from Titus Livy, which is one of the Roman historians. He writes 200 years later from the event. And from him, we have the text of Consul Lucius Postumius speaking to the General Assembly. And then I would say something else also in terms of sources. Where do we get this information from? So the movement still has no power, but it is experiencing a large increase in numbers, growing bigger every day. It has almost formed a parallel city. So parallel city in terms of two different kinds of people inhabiting the same city, with different belief systems and different value system. One very hierarchical, the other egalitarian. One misogynist, the other really honoring the place of women and other genders and sexual orientations besides heterosexuality. And so it was starting to be dangerous, this parallel city, this metaphor. I really like it, to really feel there is another people within our people. A great part of them are women, and they are the source of this evil thing. Next are males, scarcely distinguishable from females, dancing frenetically, having lost their minds by lack of sleep, by drink, by the confusion and shouting that goes on throughout the night. So he says, these are a bunch of dancing freaks. The men, you cannot even tell if they're men or women. They lost their mind. So I like this story because we can hear also the echo has reached us, and sometimes our politicians describe raves in the same way, or when there is this electronic music events and they want to repress them, like it happened in England with the Rave Act in the 90s, but also recently in Italy, it's happening again. And so, yeah, we can see how Lucius Postumius is describing the followers of Bacchus. Citizens of Rome, do you feel that young men initiated by this oath of allegiance should be made soldiers? Will they take the sword to fight to the end in defense of the chastity of your wives and children? So these are dancing freaks, they're not soldiers. And here Lucius Postumius is really triggering the fear in men and also male pride. You know, we are soldiers, we need to defend our wives and children. This is a very militarized society, and every man had to join the army at the same age when they would be initiated into the Bacchanalia. And so there was this competition. That's why this oath of allegiance towards Bacchus could be stronger than the one that they had to swear to be part of the Roman army. The priests of these rites, male and female, are to be sought out, not only in Rome, but in all market towns and centers of population, so that they should be available for the consuls. No one should ever attempt to celebrate these ceremonies anymore. So I'm taking excerpts from Titus Livy, and this one, which came after the speech of Lucius Postumius, this is part of this new law that was promulgated, was created, called the Senatus Consultum de Bacchanalibus, which we know about from Titus Livy, the historian, but also we found actually in the 1700s, a copy of this law was found in southern Italy. It looks like this. So the text that I just read is part of this, and it's held in the Kunsthistorische Museum in Vienna. So if you go there, go visit it. It's a very important piece of history for the Dionysian and the Bacchanalia tradition. And yeah, it's the law that, as I just read, forbid any kind of ceremony. They forbid people, more than 5 people, to come together. So the smart thing is that they didn't forbid it completely, but they made it really difficult to have the authorization to perform the rites. So this was the trick that they used. So Titus Livius say, after the dismissal of the assembly, the whole city was seized by extreme terror. The following night, many people were caught escaping and were arrested. There was such a flight from the city that it resulted in a depopulation. Those who were found guilty of Bacchic worship were condemned to death. All Bacchic shrines were destroyed. So we hear this from Livy the kind of fear that pervaded the people and the kind of mass repression that this triggered. And this is considered the first mass repression of a religious movement. But also I would like to focus on the fact that this is the first mass repression of people practicing altered state of consciousness in the West. And so this was the beginning also of the end of this ancient lineage that was coming all the way from the goddess culture of prehistory.